Hey, everybody. It is a cloudy, possibly rainy Friday, but we still know what that means. That is right. It is episode number 98 of The Real Deal Pod with Allister and Geoff. It is I, Allister Carrington, your trusted realtor, alongside our main man, our mortgage guru, Geoff Lee, back home safe from Mexico. Geoff, buddy, how are you?
Yeah, I am doing well. Had some dental surgery on Monday. Got an implant done, so I had a bone graft and a screw. I guess in my jaw,
Good for
and
you.
came out alive. So mouth is healing up good, and
And now you got a full set of chompers. Look at you, man.
no,
Nice. Oh no. Yeah, I see it.
still, it's in progress. It's in
That's
progress.
crazy, man. You could never tell that you were missing a tooth. When did you get it beat out of you?
But you know what? I always used to say to people, because I love playing hockey, I always used to say, you're never a real hockey player unless you basically lose a tooth playing hockey.
Hmm?
So I always would joke to myself, I lost this tooth while playing hockey, so I would be a real hockey player. But you know, the reality of it is I only had a baby tooth. It fell out, never grew back. And I've been missing this tooth for probably 40 plus years.
Nice.
But yeah, we're going to have a full grill here. And then I'll
Good
probably
for
take a puck in the mouth and lose my teeth. So
Yeah, that's good. That's what it is, man. Now you're gonna actually go to a game. You're gonna be playing, and now you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose a couple chiclets.
I used to think, like, I still think that's the coolest thing when hockey players, when you see them play and they just, they're missing their two front teeth, right?
That's
So,
crazy, man. That's a Canadian thing because I always remember like because I didn't play hockey. My dad cut my hockey career short when I was what was I 6? I always remember it would like we got the phone call the 2 nights before our first practice or whatever. I remember my dad being on the phone. He goes, "Okay, so practice is at what time?" They tell him 5:30 a.m. You want my son to be at practice for 5:30 a.m.? My son quits.
yeah,
And I
it's a
never played
commitment.
hockey. I
It's
never
a
played hockey.
commitment.
It lasted 15 minutes, my hockey career.
Yeah, 5:30. Yeah, but that's standard ice times when you're young, right?
Well, back
So,
in the 80s, 100%, man. 100%. And it's not only 5:30 a.m. in the morning, it is also Winnipeg winter outdoor ice because we didn't have a
oh,
set of indoor ice facilities back in Winnipeg at the time. All of us kids, we were outdoors, man, on the frozen pond,
that is hard. That is hardcore.
right? So 5:30 in the morning, probably going to be minus 27, minus 30. By that is like, I'm not pulling my son on the bed and I'm not standing outside.
Hey, you know what? I think you're tougher doing that than losing all your teeth, by taking a puck in your mouth. Wow. Wow.
100%, man, 100%. So that's why I moved over to basketball.
Well,
It was
and you
indoors
played
and
and you played high level football. You played
yeah,
college football, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. I still think I would have been a pretty good hockey player. I was a good goalie. I was a good goalie. Yeah.
you would have been ahead of your day if
I
you
would have
were.
been if, and this is for people that know the Winnipeg Jets from back in the day. I would have been Pokey Reddick, and that was like the one black goalie that has ever played NHL hockey. His name was Pokey
No,
Reddick.
Kevin Weeks. Kevin
Yeah,
Weeks
there
was
was
another
Kevin
one.
Weeks. There was Kevin Weeks, but nobody beats our own Pokey Reddick. Pokey was awesome
I think Pokey Reddick probably was the only black man playing hockey in that era.
in that time. 100%, man. 100%. Amazing. All right, man. Well, let's get into it because we got a pretty packed schedule today. So let's start it off with podcast hottest segment, and that is
Did you
Did
know?
you
that's
know?
right, baby. Did you know? So, Geoff, this did you know kind of goes along the theme of stuff that we've been saying forever. And it's about and it's about bringing along representation when you're visiting a pre-sale. So, Geoff, have you ever heard of the Eclipse Towers in Burnaby?
You know what? I have not.
All right. So this is about the Eclipse Condo Crisis, which isn't just a Burnaby story. It is likely becoming a warning label for every pre-sale buyer in Canada. So here's what happens when a developer hides a a tax judgment of $12 million, suspends their warranty, loses the building permit, and still tries to get you to close on your contract at the end of the day. A gentleman named Mohammed Yavid Nadali cut hair at $40 a cut to save $38,000 for his deposit. Meanwhile, Thind Properties, THIND, already had a $12 million CRA judgment against them before some of these contracts were signed. They had their warranty coverage suspended and their building permits pulled. Construction stopped, and not one buyer received an amended disclosure.
Yeah.
And REDMA, which is the Real Estate Development Marketing Act, so they are the people that oversee all of the developers, require that the moment a developer becomes aware of a material fact, which they were aware of, they must disclose. And they said nothing. So that's kind of...
So to premise it, you
Yeah.
know, is because sometimes, to simplify it, we have a developer in Burnaby
Yep.
that basically completed on a building, but completed on a building with building permits pulled,
Yep.
home warranty pulled,
Hold.
and owing money. I think it was you said $12 million to
$12
CRA,
million to the CRA. Yep.
and didn't disclose it to any of the buyers.
Anybody that had engaged into a contract and were under contract, nobody was told.
Crazy.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so, of course, now there's been a monitor appointed to oversee the developer's finances going forward. Go ahead.
And to simplify things, explain to me a monitor.
So a monitor is basically, well, obviously, a judge has now declared that obviously the owners of Eclipse are not fit to oversee their own finances. So a monitor has been put in place to oversee their finances and figure out what is going to now happen with this development. Now, here's the interesting part, because the building got finished. So again, without building permits, without everything, I don't understand it, but the building got finished. And so what the monitor appointed to see the developer's finances wants everybody to focus on is the finish line. The fact that the occupancy permit was issued April 10th, construction's done, and the deal's closed. But the buyers, and now there's about 36 of them, 36 buyers now have filed against taking ownership of the properties. And what they're saying is they're premising it, of course, on the fact that they didn't get a disclosure. But part of what they're also saying is that they also got a unit that is not worth what they paid for, right? So that's one part of the problem. And then the second part of the problem is they got a unit they would never have agreed to buy had they known the truth, right? So what we've got here, one is a market problem. The second is a disclosure problem. Now, Geoff, I'll ask you, which is the one that voids a contract?
Well, the disclosure problem will void the contract.
Exactly. The disclosure problem voids the contract. So I kind of find it laughable that they put forth the other argument that they were now being forced to buy a unit that's not worth what it was back when they signed the contracts.
Yeah.
That part is a little crazy to me, because had the market been different right now, and let's say that property be worth $100,000 more than they paid for it, they wouldn't care that they hadn't been disclosed to. Let's be honest. They wouldn't
True.
care, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I find that a little bit laughable. But what the monitor has done now is they filed a constitutional question arguing the federal CAA or CCAA. And so what the CCAA is, it's the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act. And what this is meant to do is to give creditors, or not give creditors, sorry, give the developers a little bit of leeway while trying to sort out their finances before having to enter into insolvency, right? And so the argument here is because the developer is insolvent, is insolvent, buyers can't exercise now their provincial rights. The buyers didn't cause the insolvency, the developer's own mismanagement did. And now the same insolvency is the reason why they shouldn't be held accountable. And that's what the owners of these units are arguing, is that because of the developer's mismanagement, they shouldn't be forced to take on these units.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to circle back to something that we always talk about when we go into when we talk about pre-sale homes, right? Understand again, it's a futures contract, right? When you buy a pre-sale, you are buying a futures contract. You are buying a promise from a developer about a building that doesn't exist yet, based on a disclosure statement that they wrote about themselves. So all of this, when you're signing up, this is all geared for the developer, not to protect you in any collapses, really, right? And so that's, I think, the part that we always forget about. And just so everybody knows, this isn't the only thinned property that's got problems. There's two more, I believe it is.
Under the same developer?
Under the same developer, under thin developments. There's two
Right.
other properties. There's a string of their developments that are having this issue, right? And so so Metro Vancouver has doubled its unsold condo inventory from 2024 to 2025 to 2026. We have essentially doubled our unsold inventory. So the Eclipse is not the exception, but what it's become now is the case study.
Yeah.
So again, knowing who you're buying from, reading the disclosure statement are so important. Again, having your own representation, not relying on a sales staff that's in there, because first of all, sales staff that are hired by these developers aren't realtors. They aren't licensed to be realtors, right? They're just sales staff, right? And then as well as having the representation there to be able to do the background work and figuring out and researching the developer and their prior histories. And you as the buyer should be doing it yourselves as well, so that you're not just relying, even though we talk about making sure that you have the right power team in front of you, but making sure that your power team is giving you the right information, that you should be following up on these developers themselves. But I wanted to ask you a question, Geoff, just because we've seen so many of these issues start coming up now over the past few months with and the market really has a lot of it, has had a lot to do with this, and developers maybe not doing what they need to do because they're so far underwater. We've talked about, their backs are against the wall and all of this stuff, and they just want to get out from underneath these properties. Do you think that we might see BCREA or some entity step forth and say, hey, you know what? You guys, developers, you can't have sales staff in here. Now we're going to make it so that each individual buyer coming into these showrooms has to have their own representation with them so that they're protected. Do you think that they'll go that far?
I don't know. I at this point I'm going to say no. I don't think they're going to go that far, but I also think that let's take a look at the next 6 to 12 months, because Thin Development is probably not the only developer that basically that is underwater, over leverage, basically is not going to, in arrears, and is not going to be able to complete. And of course, naturally speaking, there's a disclosure issue here, but naturally speaking, you have these pre-buyers that want to get out because maybe they definitely overpaid to what the current market is,
Yeah.
right? So so is it going to be mandated? I think it depends on how big this problem becomes.
Yeah.
And again, we take a look, I think you just said we've doubled our inventory in pre-sales, and I think that's just going to get higher and higher because these other pre-sales are coming soon to completion. Developers need to basically complete it just to get an opportunity to sell them because they are sitting on inventory. And even once they're completed, they're having a very difficult time selling them, right?
Yeah.
So I think the inventory is just going to continue to grow. I think this problem with pre-buyers is going to escalate because you're going to see a lot of these guys trying to get out of their contracts. I think with thin development, this might work for those pre-buyers because there is a disclosure issue. But again, what are they going to get back, right?
True. Mhm.
What are they going to get back? Their deposits are probably gone or leveraged in one of their other projects,
Right.
right?
That's something that wasn't touched too much upon in the article that I was reading. And that's one of the first things that came to my mind is where are their deposits? Because there was a little part in there where it said, like the owner of Thin Development said, we didn't assume that their deposits would be at risk. But then it just stopped there. It didn't go any further. And like you said, their deposits are gone.
Well, the reality of it is this, like developers developers leverage themselves like any kind of business entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Leveraging is a part and a strategy of their business.
Yeah.
So even within development, from what I'm hearing, is they have several developments that are kind of running into the same situation. And I know just from experience that developers will take one project and leverage it to the other project, to the other
To the
project.
other.
And if it's not done well, or we're hitting a market to where we're at now, those home deposits are gone. So even legally, if they're able to get them back, you're going to now be probably, in my opinion, a legal lawsuit because they don't have them. They don't have the ability to pay them back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then if this developer is going to go into insolvency, which is just a fancy word for bankruptcy, it's, in my opinion, it's best to complete on these, do the best you can, get through this current market situation that we're in, understanding it will rebound when we don't know.
Mhm.
But again, I've said this before, you should never ever buy a pre-sale unless you're able to complete on it.
Yeah.
And to your point, if the market was different, and back in the day, pre-sales were now 50, $100,000 more than what you bought them for,
Yeah.
we wouldn't even be having this conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So just there's just so much more things that are behind this onion layer outside of like, hey, is it going to be mandated that representation is going to be regulated for pre-sales? At the end of the day, folks, if you're buying any type of property, be it a pre-sale or a resale, you should have representation.
Yeah.
Your realtor is the working professional. The reason why pre-sales never want you to have a realtor is because then they have to pay them.
Right. They got to pay out the commissions.
And that's the thing is that's why these sales centers are always telling people to come in, you don't need representation because the developer doesn't want to pay the representation. And the service is great until you sign. And then once you sign, that service, in my experience, disappears. But this is again why you need representation, not only just because of what's going on with this development, but it's even if this development was going strong, is that I've seen so many cases with pre-sales buyers not being a representative that are overpromised, underdelivered, things aren't written properly, things aren't investigated properly, there's not due diligence, and all of a sudden, the wheels are falling off. So this has always been an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
The bigger issue here is now we have thin development as a case study as far as what it's going to look like moving forward. And again, depending on how it moves forward, I think this is kind of going to come down to, what is going to be mandated. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, I agree. I agree. And that's why, again, we can't state enough, guys. It's representation is so important. And again, just to go back to the sales centers, the reason why people didn't believe, I guess, that they didn't need representation from a realtor going into buy a development is because of the fact that pre-sales always made money. They did all this. They were always looked as just a great thing that happened. So what could go wrong? Who cares? Da, 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 da. I've got salespeople and they've got salespeople in there to take care of me. I don't need representation. Da, 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 da. But it's when things shift and now all the bad that can happen starts getting exposed.
Yeah.
That's when people start saying, well, how come I wasn't told I needed representation? How come this? How come that? You always need it, everybody, in the good and the bad.
I've been in the real estate game for a long, long time. This is just from memory. I could totally be wrong here, but just from memory, this is the only, in all of my years of real estate, this is the only second time that pre-sales haven't basically come out on the positive side.
Yeah.
And are coming down onto a shortfall side. My experience with pre-sales in the past have always been that pre-buyer has always come out ahead. This is only the second time in all my years of real estate that I can remember this particular situation. But again, I also know if you're in that pre-sale game, you need to complete.
Yeah.
And understand, based on history, even though that the market is down and you maybe bought it for $50,000 to $100,000 more than what you should have, it will rebound. But again, the whole purpose of pre-sales, if you're playing that game, that investment game, you have to be able to complete. If you're not able to complete, you shouldn't be in pre-sale. You shouldn't be in a pre-sale strategy game.
Yeah, don't play. If you can't complete, don't play. Don't play the game. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, people get tied up into that emotion. People get tied up into what has been. They don't, like, to your point, they don't do their due diligence. But again, to be fair, I don't think many people saw this coming as far as how long that this market would be soft for, right?
No.
I'll throw myself in there. I bought a pre-sale back in 2023. I overpaid. The unit is far less than what I purchased it for. But in the same respect, I didn't expect the market in 2026 was going to be in the state that it's in, right? Oh. But again, I had to complete with the understanding that I know it will rebound.
Exactly.
I just don't know when.
Exactly. It was supposed to rebound last year, then it was supposed to rebound this year. It'll rebound next year, but no crystal ball. But that's when I have a feeling, just with all the world stuff that you keep kind of seeing, I think it'll rebound next year.
Yeah, but again, we've been saying that for 2 years. It just depends on what is the US going to do? What is our world economy going to do? What is our Canadian government going to do? Exactly. Like, it just seems like, we don't have that crystal ball. Yeah. And nobody is a real estate genie, because the last 2 years our market was supposed to rebound.
Yeah.
The reality of it is it hasn't. It's actually going to get flooded even more with more inventory with this, with a lot of these developers completing. Mm-hmm. But we're going to see a lot of developers go into insolvency because they're sitting on so much inventory with the expectation that it was going to sell. Yep. And again, to build things isn't free. Right?
Yeah, that's it.
So even with thin development, they owe CRA $12 million. What do they own the bank?
Right. Yeah, right? Exactly.
What do they own possibly their subtrates? Mm-hmm. Right? Now again, if they have empty units and they owe the bank, now you got a banking foreclosure issue. Right? If you owe the subtrades, now you got lien issues. So now they're getting placed on the title. Now you having resale issues, because now you got to basically pay off these liens in order to resell. Yeah. Right? So this thing is just gonna snowball, and it's just not within development. And again, I know we're kind of sidetracking as far as, that was more of a disclosure thing. We're now making this a market thing, but this thing is just, not only within development, but a lot of developers, it's unraveling, and it's unraveling quickly.
100%, 100%. And you said something that I just want to touch on quickly. Like we were talking about what happens within our borders and how our economy grows and how the real estate goes within our borders. And so last week, I know I went on a passionate discussion about the Build BC. I did the Did You Know on Build Ontario and how they've set up the plan to make housing more affordable, put money back in the homeowners' pockets in Ontario. And again, I was reading a follow-up article, and so far in Ontario, it's performing very, very well. Mm-hmm. And which now has, because as I stated last week, I didn't have a lot of confidence that our government, our provincial government here, would work very well with the federal government to getting the Build BC program up and running, because I don't have a lot of faith in our provincial government. And my feelings, unfortunately, were validated. I don't like saying I'm right a lot of the times, but I was right, and I don't like being right. The housing, what is it? 8 housing groups have now urged BC government to stop delaying the Ottawa deal. So what is it? 8 organizations, including the BC Real Estate Organization, so BCREA, our governing body, the BC Construction Association, and the Canadian Home Builders Association of BC have written to Housing Minister Christine Boyle expressing alarm at her inability to accept the federal government's terms for billions in housing assistance that could save new home buyers tens of thousands of dollars. And just to kind of roll that dollar back, because that tens of thousands is actually really conservative, because the Build Ontario is meant to put $200,000 back into home buyers' pockets. So we're actually going conservative at tens of thousands, whereas Ontario's is 200,000, right? And we're still lagging behind.
Yeah.
Right? And that to me is just crazy. Again, people, when we vote, we have to understand what our province, what these parties are doing for us. And right now we don't have a solid party in power.
Well, and the crazy thing, again, not to make this overly political, if we were to have an election tomorrow, there's a large consensus that we would run into the same government.
Yeah, that they still win.
Right?
Exactly.
So
yeah, and so guys, it's just nuts. Just again, pay attention. Oh, and one more thing, just one last thing, Geoff, and then you can get into your things, because this was also another interesting thing. I was talking with a colleague of mine before this. That's why we couldn't start until 10. Keep an eye on townhomes. Townhomes throughout the West now, and this, my colleague is in Edmonton, and this is what they're finding. Investors are moving into townhomes now. And because we were just talking about markets, and I was telling them about how the townhome market here in the Fraser Valley seems to have been picking up a bit. And then Edmonton seeing a massive uptick in it. And it is investors, because again, they've seen what's happened to condos. They see now that the missing middle is the part that's becoming developed, right? And they're seeing now that homeowners or people wanting to own homes, it's probably not going to be a realistic thing. And people are going to have to rent. And the people are going to have to rent are going to need space. And that space is being fulfilled by townhomes. So we're seeing now a lot of investors in the Western provinces moving their investment dollars from the condos, as we saw before, now into new build townhomes or resale townhomes, but getting into that space instead. So it's just a place for investors. If you're an investor listening, and I hope you are, that is a place to definitely give me a call, or give your trusted realtor a call to discuss what the townhome market looks like.
And are you talking just purely in Edmonton, or are we talking Greater Vancouver?
Edmonton, area? Alberta. So far, we're talking Alberta, period. Okay. And we saw, just going through the stats, Fraser Valley, Langley saw an uptick we were plus 2% in townhome sales, where everything else was down a little bit. We were up 2% in townhome sales just in the Fraser Valley here. So it's just something, as we talk about the market, right? being soft, we do see that there's opportunities, and we see where investors are seeing those opportunities. And we also know that investors see opportunities usually a lot sooner than the rest of us do, than the rest do, because they're not adverse to risk. They accept risk, but they also see the future potential, right?
Well, a good investor too is doing their due diligence, right?
Exactly.
They're taking a look at cash flow, they're taking a look at future equity, they're
Yeah.
taking a look at civil progress as far as the area that they're buying in,
Planning. Yeah.
planning. So yeah, again, yeah, I'm interested. I'm
Yeah.
interested in something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't think that it would be driving it into the townhome market,
Yeah.
but makes sense as long as the cash flow is there, right?
All of it
It,
make
it does
yeah,
make sense.
it does make sense. And again, like the space part is what gave me the aha, that makes
Mm.
sense. People that are going to be buying, they're that like families that are going to be buying and can't afford to buy because our real estate is so high. They have to get into something with space, and the missing middle is what's being built now. So
Well, this transitions nicely into what I want to talk about, which is rate
beautiful.
holds.
Oh yeah, let's
Rate
get
hold.
at her. That was a huge. I remember COVID constantly asking people, did you get your rate hold, or was what is your rate look like?" And so I got some questions about rate holds for you. So go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, anybody that is listening to our pod that is in the process of thinking about buying or is going to be buying here in the near future, it is really, really important. Number one, like a Google roadmap, you have to do an application. You got to get pre-approved, right? If you are getting pre-approved or if you haven't been pre-approved, that is the first step. The next step is making sure that once you get pre-approved, that whomever you're working with is asking for the documents to verify the details of your pre-approval. If that is not happening, your pre-approval is as good as the toilet paper you do. Like, we won't get into that, but it's pretty much as good as the toilet paper and what you do with it.
Yeah.
A pre-approval is strong when the documents are submitted and the pre-approval is vetted with the documents because it verifies the details. What happens when you do a pre-approval? A lot of times, most of the times, should be all the time, rate holds basically come into effect. But again, when you are doing a pre-approval and when you're doing a rate hold, if there is no documents that are verifying the details of that pre-approval is just like toilet paper. Flush it down the toilet. That rate hold will just be like toilet paper. Flush it down the toilet. Because again, any pre-approval which corresponds with the rate hold is absolutely garbage unless the details are verified with documents. That is my foundational part of what we're going to talk about is documents when you're doing a pre-approval, because once you do a pre-approval, you're going to get a rate hold, or you should be doing a rate hold.
Right. So that was going to be my question. Is it up to then the person that's sitting and applying for the mortgage for them to say, "I'd like that rate hold," or is
You
it
know,
something that your broker or the person you're working with should recommend to you?
I can't say what standard practice is. Our standard practice is any pre-approval we do, we are doing rate holds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There are people and our brokers out there that don't do rate holds. So again, it would be common sense for anybody that is doing a pre-approval, as far as the borrower, is to be requesting a rate hold because it is not automatic,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So again, part of the conversation is once you do the pre-approval is number one, don't you need my documents or shouldn't you get my documents? And then basically the next thing is, are you putting me into a rate hold?
Yeah.
Right? Because that is not standard with a lot of organizations.
Right.
Okay. So rate holds, guys, understand that it just holds that lender's rate for anywhere of up to 120 days. A rate hold is great protection in rising rate markets. So I'll give you an example. Rates as of today, May 29th, were much different, and they were actually higher today than they were in April. What's the month before April?
May or
March,
March.
right? And even in February. So rates have increasingly in the last 60 to 120 days have actually creeped up, but a rate hold at the time of a pre-approval holds that lender's rate and it protects you from rising rate markets. Okay. The important thing to understand too is when you are getting a rate hold, that rate is held from the day that you do it to basically from 120 days. It's held for that 120-day period. So up to that 120-day period. So say, for example, you have a rate hold that for 120 days, you've held on to it for 105 days. You finally now get an accepted offer. You're purchasing something, but that purchase completes after the 120 days from when you originally did that rate hold. You're not going to get that rate. It has to complete within the time that that rate is held. Okay?
Yeah.
Very, very important to understand. Here is one of the things that people do not understand. A rate hold is not a full approval. Many of us believe that, hey, I've been pre-approved. Hey, I've submitted my documents. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I do have a rate hold. Now I'm going to work with my realtor and say, hey, I'm fully approved. Let's go shopping. And I'll share a story. And this is basically within our mortgage company, is we worked with a client. We did their pre-approval. We held them. We gave them a rate. We requested the documents, and we reminded them about the documents through emails and texts. And that client never gave us the documents. So, sometime later we get an email from the realtor. Hey, congratulations. We're moving forward with these borrowers. Here's the accepted offer. And I had to pick up the phone to the realtor and say, hey, we don't have documents. And she's like, oh, well, I've just shown these people 25 houses over the last month. They told me that they were pre-approved and have a rate hold. And I was like, yeah, they are pre-approved. They do have a rate hold, but we haven't got any documents. It's not that we haven't requested them. They just haven't sent them.
Yeah.
So again, now we're working, number one, in a time crunch. We have 5 business days to get the financing in place. We finally get these documents, Allister. And again, as soon as we get the documents, guess what's not matching to the details?
I'm guessing the documents don't match what they said and what they said at the pre-approval.
And to make a long story short, this file collapsed because of the documents. And it wasn't, again, as far as our side, it wasn't that we didn't request them. It wasn't that we didn't remind them. It was on the borrower side, our client side, that didn't send them. And believing that they had a full approval, working with this realtor that worked with them, showing them 25 homes, Allister.
That's crazy,
Right?
man.
So can you imagine the frustration of that realtor now that she spent all that time and basically is not able to complete because the borrower didn't support them? Requested the documents and you are not sending them, that's a flag and a big do not on your end.
Yeah.
Because again, the documents basically verify the details of the pre-approval, which will then uphold your rate hold, right? So a rate hold is not a full approval.
And I also put blame on the realtor. I put quite a bit of blame on the realtor, to be honest with you as well. Reason being is that if you're showing 25 homes, that's crazy. But fine, that's what it took. That's what your clients needed, and that's okay because it's your client's choice, right? Your clients are buying a house, that's what they needed. But during those 25 visits, discussions should have been happening with your clients about how the process is going. What have you and the lender discussed? Do you have any questions that you'd like me to follow back up on? Have you been asked for your documents? Have you sent documents in? These are conversations that you should be having as you're going through the search. Because you, as the realtor, should know, should be able to tell when writing that offer, no, it's approved and this is what we're doing. You should know the story as you're going along.
Yeah, and
So
if you don't, and sorry to interject, and if you don't know the story or not getting clear answers, reach back to the broker.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Exactly. You should always be in touch with your client, with the broker. It's a communication. That is why we as realtors, we have a rule, right, that we're forced to follow. We have a rule that we're forced to follow that, we're supposed to name three. If a client asks us for a mortgage broker, right? They ask us for, who we would suggest. We're supposed to give them three names so that we don't come across as biased, right? Let's just be honest. 99%, well, I shouldn't say 99. I'm going to say 90%, maybe 10%. I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I'm giving us realtors maybe a little bit too much credit. So maybe 30% of us have one person that we work with, one broker that we work with. And it's because we know that this broker is going to get the things done in a timely manner. We know that we're going to have open communication throughout the process. So there isn't going to be any surprises. But if you are a realtor that is giving out three names, make sure the three names that you're giving, you have an open communication with all three of those people that you're going to be recommending, because you're going to need to be able to make sure throughout the process with these clients that this deal is going to close, and you haven't, for lack of a better term, wasted your time showing 25 homes on something that's never going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing too, is even when you support your pre-approval with documents, and you have a rate hold, understand that every document that's older than 30 days at time of an accepted offer has to be updated.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if your income has changed, if your debts have changed, if anything has changed from the time of the rate hold based on the pre-approval, remind yourselves or gently remind yourselves that any document that's older than 30 days needs to be updated. So if anything has changed from the time of those original documents, and again, your financing could fall apart.
Can I ask a quick question, Geoff?
Sure.
Just on the rate hold itself, because some people have this concern, right? I know in COVID, there was that question, not at the end, at the beginning, was, okay, so I got my rate hold. What happens if this rate hold's good for 90 days? What happens if within 60 days the rates go down? Am I still now going to be having to pay this higher rate, or can I get that lower rate that's available?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer to that is that you're getting that lower rate, right?
Yeah.
The rate hold just basically protects you if the market begins to rise,
right,
or the rates begin to rise, which they have been within the last 120 days.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if the rates go down, that rate hold basically means nothing. You just will get that sharpest rate at that given time, right? So again, that's a great question, because again, people will say, well, this is the rate that I'm getting. And then they start shopping it around and say, if the market of the rates have actually come down, then they're like, oh, I'm going to go over here because I'm going to get a better rate.
Right.
Whereas again, they haven't been educated, or it hasn't been communicated as like, hey, this is just protecting you if rates rise. But if the rates go lower, we're going to go and chase those rates. So again, that broker is doing themselves a disservice if they're not explaining that properly. Because again, if an individual or a borrower just thinks, hey, this is going to be my rate because this is my rate hold, and all of a sudden the rates start to dip a little bit, and they think, hey, I'm going to get rate X, but now rates are here. That broker has just invested so much time and energy on something that they're not able to complete because they haven't communicated what exactly a rate hold is. And again, a rate hold is not a full approval. It's protecting you from rising rates in a market. And again, if the rates go lower, we simply just shift gears and we go after that lower rate.
Yeah.
So really, that's the gist of it. The other part where I just want to kind of wrap this thing up is understand, folks, that the lowest rate isn't always the best mortgage product, right? And we've talked about this in past pods and past subjects. You know, full frill mortgages are mortgages that basically have all the bells and whistles that are standard. No frill mortgages can often come with, say, a lower rate, but they basically are hidden with restrictions because, again, most people are saying, what's the rate? They're not asking about porting. They're not asking about blend extending. They're not asking about how is penalties calculated. They're not asking about prepayment privileges. All they're asking is about a rate. And then again, we've talked about this before, 7 out of 10 mortgages will, or maybe it's 6 out of 10, will basically break within the first 3 years.
Yeah.
And again, if you're not asking the right questions about what is the personalities of the mortgage, and we're just talking about what is the best rate, you know, you're going to possibly get hit with a lot of penalty because, again, you're in the wrong mortgage product. Kind of shifted here a little bit. That's another pod topic.
No,
but
it's a good one, though.
It's a good one. We should probably circle back to that one. But again, back to the rate holds, guys, where I want to leave this off. If you are doing an application, always do an application if you're pre-approval, if you're house hunting. Even if you're thinking about house hunting, we always say it's a Google roadmap. It's a roadmap as far as your next steps. Get a pre-approval done.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're getting docs. Asked that you're getting docs, give the docs, because if you're not getting the docs or if you're not getting asked for the docs, your pre-approval is not very strong. Understand that anytime that you do a pre-approval, there's going to be a rate hold there. It's going to protect you from a rising rate market for a period of up to 120 days. If rates go down lower, you have the ability to go and get those better rates. Understand that if any document is older than 30 days, it needs to be updated. So don't take on new debt. Don't take on new employment. Don't take on anything that's going to hamper your possible purchase. And if you are going to do that, make sure you talk to your broker so they're aware of it, so they, as well as communicate that with your realtor, right?
Yeah.
So again, rate holds are great. They're tools. They're not guarantees. They're great for planning, which is going to reduce stress and surprises. But if you're not working with the right person that's not doing the right things, and this is your broker, your banker, whomever that may be, if they're not doing things properly on their end, they're a horrible tool and they're just going to create stress and surprises because they haven't done it well.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to end it.
That's amazing because, this was a great topic because this was, I don't know, like rate holds was so weird. Like we hear about it a lot in our industry, but I don't think I heard like so much chatter about it until we really hit into the COVID time. It was the word that was being thrown around by so many mortgage brokers that was coming like I would come across, right? It was always like, talk to them about rate hold, talking about the rate hold, talking about rate hold. And so I think that this was important because of the time that we're in now. So
yeah,
amazing. Well, man, that all you got for us?
That's it.
Amazing. Well, this was a lot. And one of the things that I was thinking about as we've been speaking today, we talk about it all the time. I was thinking about if you guys are listening today, and Geoff and I always say that we hope you get just one nugget out of these things to take away with you and all that sort of stuff. And I started thinking, if you've been listening to our pod for a while and you start hearing a lot of stuff that you've never heard about before, I hope you start really thinking about the people that you have around you. Because a lot of this stuff that Geoff and I talk about, is stuff that we kind of feel that is get out of bed stuff for in the mortgage world, in the real estate world, and we're just bringing it, bringing it up to the surface, hoping to share it with you guys. But you guys should have this information, and if you don't, it speaks volumes to the people that you have around you. So if you're not getting information like this on, let's say, a monthly basis, start re-examining who you're around. Start talking to your friends about maybe who might be better suited for you. Reach out to Geoff and I, and just have a conversation with us. Again, it's always no strings attached. We're always happy to sit down and talk with people and set them on a right path. But if you're hearing a lot of things that you've never heard before, that's a problem. So we appreciate that you guys are listening to us, and we're glad that we're bringing information to you. But it's just stuff that you guys should be hearing more often than not. Whew. Anyhow, we hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I don't think it's supposed to rain all weekend. Just get out and enjoy some of it. Summer's here, summer started. Kids are graduating and getting out. So get out there and start enjoying your time. Continue to love, like us, share us, tell everybody you know about us. But most importantly, stay informed. Stay empowered. And Geoff,
stay tuned.
That's right, baby. Stay tuned. Peace out.